Welcome to BookTube. Today we dive into the gripping world of Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, the third novel in the captivating Empyrean series. The other novels' fourth wing are on the channel, link in the description to the ones that don't run with the popular crowd, the ones who get caught reading under their desks, the ones who feel like they never get invited, included, or represented. Get your leathers, we have dragons to ride. An excerpt from the recovered correspondence of General Augustine Melgren to His Majesty King Tari, securing BZG, and the wards have come at great cost, including General Soren. Gale's life strategy must adjust. It is in the realm's best interest to ally with Porum, even temporarily. Prologue, wherein Malik's name is he. Going I hurry through the tunnels beneath the quadrant, trying to follow. But night is the ultimate shadow, and Xaden blends seamlessly into the darkness. If it wasn't for our dragons Bond leading me in his general direction, and the sporadic disappearance of Mage Lights, I'd never think that he's masked. Somewhere ahead of me, fear holds me with an icy fist, and my footing grows unsteady. He kept his head down this evening, guarded by Bod and Garrick, while we waited for news about Sawyer's injury after the battle that nearly cost us Beth. But there's no telling what he's doing now. If anyone spots the faint strawberry red circles around his irises, he'll be arrested and likely executed according to the texts I've read. They'll fade at this phase, but until they do, what could possibly be important enough for him to risk being seen? The only logical answer sends a chill up my spine that has nothing to do with the cold stone of the corridor seeping in through my socks. There hadn't been time for boots or even my armor after the click of the closing door woke me from a restless sleep. Neither of them will answer, and Darna says, and I yank open the door to the enclosed bridge as its counterpart on the far end snicks shut. Was that him? Sigale is still incensed and tearing smells of both rage and sorrow, understandable for all the reasons I can't allow myself to dwell on yet. But inconvenient. Do you want me to ask Cure or CRA? She starts. No, the four of them need their sleep. No doubt we'll find ourselves on patrols for any remaining Ven income. Morning, I cross the freezing expanse of the bridge with increasingly uncertain steps and jolt at the view outside the windows. It had been warm enough for thunderstorms earlier, but now snow falls in a thick curtain concealing the ravine that separates the quadrant from BG's campus. My chest clenches, and a fresh wave of seemingly endless tears threatens to prickle my painfully swollen eyes. It began about an hour ago, and Darna says gently, the temperature has fallen steadily. An hour since. Don't go there. My next breath shakes, and I force everything I can handle into a neat, mentally fireproof box and stash it somewhere deep inside me. It's too late to save Mom, but I'll be damned if I let Xaden get himself killed. You can grieve, and Darna reminds me as I pull open the door to the healer quadrant and enter the crowded hall. Wounded in every color of uniform line the sides of the stone tunnel, and healers dart in and out of the infirmary doors. If I wallow in every loss, that's all I'll ever have time for. I've learned that lesson well over the past 18 months. Passing a set of clearly intoxicated infantry cadettes, I cut through what's become an expanded sick bay, searching for a blur of darkness. This part of the quadrant didn't sustain any damage, but it still reeks of sulfur and ash. May your mother be remembered too. General Soren Gale, the flame of BSG. One of the third years calls out, and my stomach twists tighter as I forge ahead without reply. When I approach the corner, then turn it, I see a patch of darkness enveloping the right side of the wall for a stuttering heartbeat, and then the stairwell to the interrogation chamber appears, flanked by two groggy guards. Shadows slip down the steps. Usually I love being right, but in this instance I was hoping otherwise. I reach for Xaden mentally, but there's only a thick wall of chilled onyx. I have to get past these guards. What would Merera do? She would have already slain your lieutenant and been confident in her choice, and Darna answers, your sister is an act first, ask questions later, kind of right or not helpful. What little I'd eaten for dinner threatens to reappear, and Arna's right. Moreau will kill Zen if she finds out he's channeled from the earth, regardless of the circumstances. But confidence, that's not a bad idea. I muster every ounce of arrogance I can. SCR up or fake, straighten my shoulders, lift my chin, and stride toward the guards. Praying I look steadier than I feel. I need an audience with the prisoner. The two men glance at each other, and then the taller one on the left clears his throat. We're under orders from Melrin. not to allow anyone down these steps. Tell me. I tilt my head and fold my arms like I'm strapped with every dagger I own or am at least wearing footwear. If the man directly responsible for your mother's death was a flight of stairs away, what would you do? The shorter one looks down, revealing a cut beneath his ear. Orders. The taller one starts glancing at the ends of my sleep. Loosen. Great, he's behind a locked door. I interrupt. I'm asking you to look the other way for 5 minutes, not give me the key. My gaze darts poignantly to the key ring hanging on his blood-stained belt. If it had been your mother and she'd secured the kingdom's entire defense system with her life, I promise I'd afford you the same courtesy. The tall one blanches. Goon. The short one whispers. She's the lightning wielder. Goon grunted and his hands flex at his sides. 10 minutes, he says. 5 for your mother and 5 for you. We know who saved us today. He motions toward the stairwell with his head, but he doesn't know. None of them realize the sacrifice Xaden made to kill the sage there. General, thank you. I start down the stairs with wobbling knees, ignoring the pungent scent of wet earth that claws at the outer edges of my composure. I can't believe he came down here. He probably seeks information and Darna notes. I cannot blame him for wanting to know what he is. The longing in her voice startles me. On multiple levels, he isn't a soulless venom. He's still Xaden, my Xaden. I snap, holding tight to the one thing I'm certain of as I make my way silently down the stairs. You know what? Channeling from the earth. Does she? Warns. No. Yes, except absolutely not. If he'd completely lost himself, he would have drained me at any number of points tonight, especially while I slept. Instead, he ensured our safety and risked exposure to sit at my side for hours. He channeled from the earth once. Surely we can repair wherever his soul may have cracked. It's the most I'm willing to admit. I already know what Taran thinks, and the possibility of fighting both of you is exhausting. So please, for the love of Amari, be on my side. The bond directly between us shimmers. All right, really. I pause on the stair, playing my hand on the wall to catch my balance. I am as unknown as he is, and you still trust me. She says. I will not be another battle you have to fight. Oh, thank gods. Her words seep into the marrow of my bones, and I hang my head in relief. I hadn't realized how badly I needed to hear that until she said, I thank you, and you have every right to know about where you come from, but I have no doubts about who you are. I start down the remaining steps, sure of my footing. You alone should make the choice to find your family, and I'm worried that Melgren I scorched the venom during the battle. She interrupts in a rush of words that run together. You did. My brow puckers as I spiral downward toward the interrogation cells. I'd been too shocked at her appearance, the way her scales had shifted, to think about the burning dark wielder. As far as I know, we've never caught one on fire. Tan hadn't said anything either. I've been thinking about it all night. Magic feels different when I change color. Maybe my use of power in that moment altered the venom, weakened her enough to blister, and Darna slows enough to enunciate her words, but not by much that could alter everything. Muffled voices sound beneath me, and I quicken my pace. It's definitely worth investigating later. Not that I'm willing to risk Anna by shouting that she might be our newest weapon, especially not when the rumor has already circulated that we'll seek an alliance with whom. What could be worse than leadership endangering Andera, the whole continent's leadership, seeking to do the same? You can fight it all you want, but that power streaming through her veins. Jack taunts, his words growing clearer as I near the final few turns. There's a reason the higher-ups want her. A little brotherly advice. Fall in line and find someone else to that infamous control of yours so much as flickers in her direction. I would never. Xaden retorts, his voice lethally icy. My heart rate doubles, and I halt just before the last curve in the stair while keeping out of sight. Jack's talking about me. Even you don't get a say in which parts of us are taken first. Ryerson. Jack laughs, but speaking from personal experience, control goes quickly. Just look at you, freshly fed from the source and already down here desperate for a cure. You will slip, and afterward, well, let's just say that silver hair that has you so bedotted will be gray, like the rest of her, and those weak-ass initiate rings in your eyes won't just last a few days. They'll be permanent. Not going to happen. Xaden bites out every word. You could deliver her yourself. Chains rattle, or you could let me out, and we'll do it together. Who knows, they might let her live just to keep you on a leash until you turn a sim and forget all about her. You. My hands ball into fist. Jack knows Xaden channeled. He'll tell the first person who questions him, and Xaden will be arrested. My mind spins. As the two start to argue only yards away, their words blurring in the whirlwind of my thoughts. Gods, I could lose Zayden just like I can't, I won't, I refuse to lose him. For him to lose himself, fear fights to rise, and I snuff it out, denying it air to breathe or grow. The only thing stronger than the power prowling within me is the resolve stiffening my spine. Zayden is mine, my heart, my soul, my everything. He channeled from the earth to save me, and I'll scour the world until I find a way to save him right back, even if it takes bargaining with terrorists for access to every book on the damned continent, or capturing dark wielders one by one to question. I'll find a cure, we'll find a cure, and Darna promises we will exhaust every closer resource first. But if I'm right and I somehow altered that venom inadvertently while changing my scales, then the rest of my kind should know how to master the tactic, how to change him, cure him. My breath stutters at the possibility that cost. Even if you're right, I'm not using you. I want to find my family. We both know the order to locate my kind is inevitable. Now that your leadership knows what I am, let us do so on our terms and for our own purposes. Her tone sharpens. Let us follow every possible path to a cure. She's right, every possible path may require breaking a few laws. Dragons do not answer to the laws of humans, she counters in a tone that reminds me of Taran. And as my bond did as Taran's rider, you no longer answer to them either. Rebellious adolescent, I mutter, forming half a dozen plans, half of which might work even as their rider. There are still some crimes that would demand my execution, and that of whomever I trust to involve. I nod to myself, accepting the risk, at least for myself. You'll have to keep secrets again, and Darna warns only the ones that protect Zayden, which currently means preventing Jack from revealing this conversation without killing him, since we can't afford the manhunt, the death of our only prisoner. What? 'Cause you sure I shouldn't ask you, or Sir, I know I start down the stairs. There's only one other person besides Bod and Garrick I can trust to prioritize Zion's best interests. Only one other person who can know the truth in its entirety. Tell Glane I need. Imagine an excerpt from Violet Sale's personal addendum to the Book of Brennan. I will not die today, strike through, I will save him. Chapter 1. 2 weeks later. Flying in January should be a violation of the codex. Between the howling storm and the incessant fog in goggles I can't see as we cut through the blustering snow squall above the mountains near BZG, hoping we're almost through the worst of it. I grip the pommels of my saddle with gloved hands and hold tight. Dying today would be inconvenient, I say, down the mental pathway connecting me to Turan and Darna, unless you're trying to keep me away from the scenarium this afternoon. I've waited more than a week for the invitation, disguised order to come from the King's Council, but the delay is understand, given they're on the 4th day of unprecedented peace talks happening on campus. Poor has publicly declared they'll walk after the 7th day if terms can't be reached, and it isn't looking good. I only hope that they'll be in an agreeable mood when I arrive. Want to make your meeting, don't fall off this time. Turan retorts, for the last time I didn't fall off, I argue. I jumped off to help Sawyer. Don't remind me, you can't keep leaving me off patrols. And Darna interrupts, from the warmth and protection of the veil it isn't safe. Taran reminds her for what has to be the 100th time, weather aside, we're hunting dark wielders, not out for a pleasure flight. You shouldn't fly in this, I agree, looking for any sign of Riddick and Adam, but there's only walls of white. My chest tightens. How are any of us supposed to see topography, or our squad mates let alone spot a dark wielder hundreds of feet below? In this mess I can't remember a more brutal series of storms than the ones that have battered the War College in the last 2 weeks. But without Mom, grief sinks the tips of her razor sharp claws into my chest, and I lift my face to feel the stinging bite of snow against the tops of my cheeks, focusing on anything else to keep breathing, keep moving. I'll mourn later, always. It's just a quick patrol. Amarna whines, jarring me from my thoughts. I need a practice. Who knows what weather we'll encounter on the search for my kind. Quick patrols have proven deadly, and I'm not looking for reasons to test Endera's fire theory. Dark wielders may have limited power within the wards, but they're still lethal fighters. The ones who didn't escape post-battle have used the element of surprise to add multiple names to the death. Areli, 1st Wing, 3rd Wing, and our own claw section have suffered losses, then practice evenly dispersing. Yet yours miraculously carry the burden of your enough magic to keep all your Extremities warm during flight because your wings won't hold the weight of this. Ice tear growls into the falling snow. Your wings won't hold the weight of this. Ice and Darna blatantly mocks him, and yet yours miraculously carry the burden of your ego. Go find a sheep and let the adults work. Taran's muscles shift slightly beneath me in a familiar pattern, and I lean forward as far as the saddle will allow, preparing for a dive. My stomach lurches into my throat as his wings snap closed and we pitch downward, slicing through the storm. Wind tears at my winter flight hood, and the leather strap of my saddle bites into my frozen thighs. As I pray to Zenal, there isn't a mountain peak directly beneath us. Taran levels out and my stomach settles as I tug my goggles up to my forehead and blink quickly, looking right. The drop in altitude has lessened the intensity of the storm, improving visibility enough to see the rocky ridge line just above the flight field. Looks clear, my eyes tear up, assaulted by both wind and snow that feels more like tiny projectiles of ice than flakes. I clean my lenses using the suede tips of my gloves before snapping them over my eyes. Again, agreed. Once we hear the same from Fear and Kruth, will end today endeavors. He grumbles, you sound like making it 3 straight days without encountering the enemy is a bad thing. Maybe we've really caught and killed them all. As cadets, we've slain 31 venom in the area surrounding BZG, while our professors work to clear the rest of the province. It would be 32 if anyone suspected one of them was living among us, though even if he's credited with 17 of the kills, I am not comforted by the quiet. Wind whips overhead with a crack and Taran's head jerks upward. Mine immediately follows suit. Oh no, not wind. Wings. Adam's claws consume my vision and my heart seizes with panic. He's dropping out of the storm directly on top of us. I shout, but he's already rolling left, hurling us from our course. The world rotates, sky and land exchanging places, twice in a nauseating dance before Taran flares his wings in a jarring snap. The movement cracks the inch-thick layer of ice along the front ridges of his wings, and chunks fall away. I draw a full but shaky breath as Taran pumps his wings with maximum effort, gaining 100 feet of altitude in a matter of seconds and barreling straight toward the brown sword tail bonded to Riddick Wrath scalds the air in my lungs, teen emotions flooding my system for a heartbeat before I can slam my mental shields down to muffle the worst of what streams in through the bond. Don't I shout into the wind as we come up on Adam's left, but as always T does whatever he wants and full-on crunches his jaws within what looks like inches of Adam's head. It was clearly an accident, one that would usually be avoided by dragons. Communicating the smaller brown sword tail squawks as Taran repeats the warning, then Adam exposes his throat in a gesture of submission. Rick looks my way through the band of snow and throws up his hands, but I doubt he sees my shrug of apology before Adam falls away, heading south to the flight field. Guess Fear Genri reported in. Was that really necessary? IDRO my shield and TS and Andera's bonds come flooding back at full strength, but the shimmering pathway that leads to Zayden is still blocked, dim to an echo of its usual presence. The loss of constant connection sucks, but he doesn't trust himself or what he thinks he'll become to keep it open yet. Yes, Taran answers, declaring the single word sufficient. You're almost twice his size, and it was obviously an accident. I repeat as we descend rapidly to the flight field. The snow on the ground of the box canyon has been trampled into a muddy series of paths from the constant patrol's second and third years are flying. It was negligent, and a 22-year-old dragon should know better than to close himself off from his riot simply because he's arguing with his rider. Taran grumbles, his anger lowering to a simmer as Adam lands beside Ree's green dagger tail. Fear Tan's claws impact the frozen ground to Adam's left, and the sudden landing vibrates every bone in my body. Like a rung bell, pain explodes along my spine, my lower back taking the brunt of the insult. I breathe through the worst of it, then accept the rest and move on. Well, that was graceful. I jerk my goggles to my forehead. You fly next time. He shakes like a wet hound, and I block my face with my hands as ice and snow fly off his scales. I tug at the leather strap of my saddle when he stills, but the buckle catches along the jagged, shitty line of stitches I put in after the battle, and one of them pops. Damn it, that wouldn't have happened if you'd let Zayden fix it. I force my body out of the saddle, ignoring the aching protest of my cold, cramped joints as I make my way across the icy pattern of spikes and scales. I Know as well as my own hand the Dark One. Didn't cut it in the first place, Taran. Respond, stop calling him that. My knee collapses and I throw my arms out to steady my balance, cursing my joints as I reach Taran's shoulder after an hour. In the saddle at these temperatures, a pissed off knee is nothing. I'm lucky my hips still rotate. Stop denying the truth. Taran enunciates every word of the damning order as I avoid a patch of ice and prepare to dismount. His soul is no longer his own. That's a little dramatic. I'm not getting into this argument again. His eyes are back to normal. That kind of power is addictive, you know it, or you wouldn't be pretending to sleep at night. He twists his neck in a way that reminds me of a snake and levels a golden glare on me. I'm sleeping. It's not entirely a lie, but definitely time to change the subject. Did you make me repair my saddle to teach me a lesson? My ass protests every scale on Tan's leg as I slide then land in a fresh foot of snow. Or because you don't trust Zidane with my gear anymore? Yes. Taran lifts his head far over mine and blasts a torrent of fire along his wing, melting off the residual ice, and I turn away from a surge of heat that painfully contrasts my body temperature. I struggle for words and look up at him. I need to know where you stand before this meeting, with or without Empyrean approval. I can't do any of this without you. Meaning, will I support the myriad of ways you plan to court death in the name of curing one who is beyond redemption? He swivels his head in my direction again. Tension crackles along and Darna's bond. He's not. I cut off that particular argument since the rest is sound. Basically, yes. He grumbles deep within his chest. I lie without warming my wings in preparation for carrying heavier weight for longer distances. Does that not answer your question? Meaning, Andara relief gusts through my lips on a swift exhale. Thank you. Steam rolls in billowing clouds from his nostrils, but do not mistake my unflinching support of you, my mate, and Andara for any form of faith in him. Taran lifts his head, doing the end of the conversation heard. On that note, I trudge toward the trampled path where Ree and Quinn wait. RCK gives Taran a wide berth as he does the same to my right. My nearly numb gloved fingers fumble with the 3 buttons on the side of my winter flight hood, and the fur-lined fabric falls away from my nose and mouth as I reach them. Everything good on your route? R and Quinn looked cold but uninjured, thank God. Still alarmingly routine. We didn't see anything of concern. Wyvern burn pit is still just ash and bone too. Rikes a clump of snow from the lining of her hood, then pulls it back up over her shoulder-length black braids we didn't see for those last 10 minutes. RCK shoves his gloved hands into his hair, snowflakes slipping off his brown cheeks without melting. At least you're an ice wielder. I gesture to his annoyingly flack-free face. Quinn pulls her blonde curls into a quick bun. Wielding can help keep you warm too. I'm not chancing it when I can't see what I might strike, especially having lost my only conduit in the battle. I glance at Rick as a line of our tail section's dragons launch for their patrol behind him. What were you arguing with Adam about? Anyway, sorry about that. RCK cringes and lowers his voice. He wants to go home, back to AAA. Says we can launch the search for the 7th Bree from there. Ree nods and Quinn presses her lips in a firm line. Yeah, I get that. I say it's a common sentiment among the riot. We're not exactly welcome here. The unity between Narian and Asian riders crumbled within hours of the battle's end, but the only path for an alliance that can save perished civilians requires us to be here, at least for now. Not to mention Zayden insists we stay. He remains. Do Navarra's wards protect you from him? Taran blast another stream of fire when I ignore him, heating his left wing, then crouches before launching skyward with the others. The courtyard is nearly empty when we enter through the tunnel that runs under the RIDG line, separating it from the training grounds in front of us. Snow tops the dormitory wing, the centered rotunda that links the quadrant structures in all but the southernmost roof line of the academic wing. Ahead to our left, where Malk's fire burns bright in the highest turret, consuming the belongings of our dead as he requires. Maybe the god of death will curse me for keeping my mother's personal journals, but it's not like I wouldn't have a few choice words for him should we meet. Anyway, report Aura Baven orders from the Da'at. Our left, where she stands with you and Faber, the stocky sour-faced wing leader of what little remains of NAR's 4th wing. Oh good, you all made it back. Yuan's voice drips with sarcasm as he folds his arms, snow falling on his broad shoulders. We were so Worried prick was barely a squad leader. In claw when we left Rick. Mutters nothing this morning Ryan in. Replies and RA nods but doesn't deign to say anything. Any news from the front? My stomach knots. The lack of information is agonizing. Nothing I'd be willing to share with a bunch of deserters. Answered. Well, screw her. A bunch of deserters who saved your ass. Quinn offers a middle finger as we continue past our boots crunching on the snow-covered gravel. Narian riders. Aeration riders, we can't function like this, she says to the group quietly. If they won't accept us, the flyers don't have a prayer. I nod in agreement. Mira's working on that particular issue, not that leadership knows or will allow the use of whatever she's learned, even if it saves the negotiations. Pompous DA and Corey will be back any day. They'll sort out command structure as soon as the Royals ink a treaty that hopefully pardons us for leaving in the first place. Her head as Imagine walks out of the rotunda in front of us, her pink hair skimming her cheekbone as she descends the stone steps. Kulo, you missed patrol. I was assigned elsewhere by Lieutenant Tavis. Imagine explains, not missing a beat as she comes our way. Her gaze jumps toward me. Sing, I need a word. I nod. She was on Zayden duty. See that you're present tomorrow. Or walks past Imagine with the other two, then pauses halfway up the steps and glances over her shoulder as the others head inside. Wait, is Mira due back today? Tomorrow. Anxiety ties a pretty little bow around my throat and tugs. It's one thing to form a plan and quite another to carry it out, especially when the consequences could involve the people I love becoming traitors. Again, every possible path, and Darna reminds me every possible path. I repeat like a mantra and straighten my shoulders. Good. A slow smile spreads across Ree's face. We'll be in the infirmary when you're done, she promises, then walks up to the remaining steps to the rotunda. You told the second years what May is up to. Imagine whispers with a sharp bite of accusation. Only the rider's eye retort just as quietly. If we get caught, it's treason, but if the flyers do, it's war. Imagine finishes. RCK, did you freeze this door shut? Ree shouts from the top of the steps, yanking on the door handle of the rotunda with her full body weight before marching through its counterpart to her left. Get back here and fix it now. Right, telling them was a solid choice. Imagine rubs the bridge of her nose as Rick laughs hysterically from inside the rotunda. The four of you are a nuisance. It's going to be a miracle if we can pull this off without getting ourselves executed. You don't have to be involved. I steer her down in a way I never would have dreamed of 18 months ago. I'll do it with or without your help. Feels snarky. Are we? A corner of her mouth tugs upward. Relax, as long as Myra figures out a plan. Of course and she doesn't know how to fail. I can see that snow blows across our faces as Im's eyes harden. But please say you didn't tell your fearsome foursome everything about why we're doing this. Of course not. I shove my gloves into my pocket. He's still pissed at me for burdening you with the knowledge. Then he should stop doing stupid that needs to be covered up. She rubs her hands together in the cold and follows me up the steps. Look, I needed you alone because Garrick Bott and I talked without me. My spine stiffens about you, she clarifies unapologetically. Even better, I reached for the door. We've decided you need to rethink your sleeping arrangements. My grip tightens on the handle as I contemplate slamming the door in her face. I've decided you can all go yourselves. I'm not running from him even in the moments he's lost control. He's never hurt me. He never will. That's what I told them you'd say, but don't be surprised if they keep asking. Good to know you're still predictable, even if Ryerson isn't. How was he this morning? Heat rushes over my face as we walk into the empty rotunda and I push back my hood. Without classes formation or any sense of order, the academic wing might sit abandoned, but Commons and the gathering hall are congested with aimless, worried, agitated cadets hoping to survive the next patrol and looking to take their frustrations out on someone else. Every single one of us would kill for a battle. Brief, surly, and stubborn as always. Imogen answers when we cross into the dormitory, quieting as we pass a group of glaring second years from first Y, including Caroline Ashton, which means the truth-sayers cleared her. Lucky for us, the steps leading down to the healer quadrant are blessedly empty. You consider telling him what we're up to? He's aware we'll be sent to find and darnest kind. As for the rest, he doesn't want to know. I nod at a pair of approaching Arasan riders out of third Y when we reach the tunnels, but wait to speak until we're out of earshot. He's worried about being an unintentional leak, which is ridiculous. but I'm respecting his wishes. I can't wait for him to discover. You're leading your own rebellion, she grins as we walk across the enclosed bridge to the healer quadrant. It's not a rebellion and I'm not leading Zayden Danri, their leaders. They inspire and command for the good of the unit. I'm just doing whatever it takes to save Zayden, including the mission to find and Dar's kind. She throws open the door to the healer quadrant and I follow her in. That's different and I'm not leading as much as I am selecting a leader. Hopefully I glance down the cluttered tunnel past the quietly sleeping patients dressed mostly in infantry blue and spot a group of hooded scribes moving among them, no doubt still working to get accurate accounts of the battle. Sounds the same, but it's not right. The word drips with sarcasm. Well, message delivered, so I'm done with this conversation. Let me know when Mara gets back. She walks off toward main campus. Give Sawyer my best and good luck. This afternoon, thanks. I call after her, then turn toward the infirmary. The scent of herbs and metal hits my lungs as I enter. Through the double doors I wave at Traeger on my right, who's among the healing trained flyers doing their best to help where they can. He nods back from a patient bedside, then reaches for a needle and thread. I continue quickly to the nearest corner, moving from the healers' paths as they scurry in and out of the curtain-lined bays where rows of the injured rest. Rick's laugh sounds from the last bay as I approach. The pale blue curtains are tied back, revealing a pile of discarded winter flight jackets in the corner. And every other second year in our squad crammed around a Sawyer's bed. Stop exaggerating, Rannon says from the wooden chair near Sawyer's head, shaking her finger at RCK, who's sitting on the bed right where our squad mates' lower leg used to be. I simply told them that it was our squad's table and they needed to take their cowardly asses back to the first Y section where they belonged. Rock finishes for her with another laugh. You didn't really say that. A corner of Sawyer's mouth quirks upward, but it's far from the true smile. She did. I'm careful not to step on Kat's outstretched legs on the floor beside Marin as I move into the cramped space, unbuttoning my flight jacket and tossing it onto the pile. Riders get offended by the weirdest things. Kat arches a dark brow and flips through Markham's history textbook. We have far bigger issues than tables. True. Marin nods, plaiting her dark brown hair into a 4-strand braid. How is patrol anyway? Sawyer scoots to a more upright position without any help. Quiet. Rick answers, I'm starting to think we've gotten them all, or they've managed to flee. Sawyer muses, the light fading from his eyes. You'll be chasing them down soon. Not until we graduate. Or crosses her legs. They're not sending cadets beyond the borders, except Violet, of course. We'll be off seeking the 7th breed so we can win this war. Rick glances my way with a eating grin. Don't worry, I'll keep her safe. I can't quite tell if he's teasing or serious. Cat snorts and flips another page like they're going to let you go. Guarantee it'll be offices only. No way. Rock shakes his head. It's her dragon. Her rules right by every head turns in my direction, assuming they put us on orders. I'll provide a list of people I trust to go to a list that's been through so many drafts I'm not even sure I'm carrying the right one. You should take the squad. Sawyer suggests we work best as a team. He scoffs. Who am I kidding? You'll work best as a team. I'm barely climbing stairs. He nods to the crutches beside his bed. You're still on the team. Hydrate. Reaches across the bedside table and over a note that looks to be in Gia's handwriting to grab a peer mug. Water is not going to grow my leg back. Sawyer takes it in the metal handle, hisses, forming to his grip. He looks up at me. I know that's a shitty thing to say after you lost your mother. Pain isn't a competition, I assure him. There's always enough to go around. He sigh. I got a visit from Colonel Chandler. My stomach hollows. The commander of the retired riders. Sawyer nods. What? Rock folds his arms. Second years don't retire, die. Yes, retire. No, I get that. Sawyer starts. I just a shrill scream echoes throughout the infirmary in a knee-wavering pitch that's reserved for something far worse than pain. Terror. The silence that follows chills me to the bone. Apprehension lifting the hair on the back of my neck as I unshed 2 of my daggers and turned to face the threat of what was that. Rick slid off Sawyer's bed and the others moved behind me as I step outside the bay and pivot toward the open infirmary doors. She's dead. A cadet in infantry blue stumbles in and falls to his hands and knees. They're all dead. There's no mistaking the gray handprint marking the side of his neck. Venom. My heart seizes. We haven't found them out on patrol because they're already inside.